Judges in Wisconsin and New York both overturned decisions that were made by the legislature or a judge in Wisconsin's case about what's going to happen in the upcoming years. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. In other news, the U.S. is warning that an invasion by Russia is imminent to the Ukraine, while Ukraine is looking back at the situation and saying, hey, stop panicking. This isn't as imminent as you think it is. So we'll talk just a bit about the differences between the two. Truckers in Canada form a convoy into the capital to protest vaccine mandate requirements. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. And Jim Jordan makes out a tweet where he says 1.9 million illegal immigrants have been apprehended. And everyone comes out and says, oh, look at this. This means there's no crisis on the border. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we've got a lot of stuff to get to today. On a Wednesday, of course, a lot of stuff is piled up. We've had some leftover from yesterday. We'll admit that was my fault. I overslept last night. Not last night. Well, I overslept last night too, but the night before I overslept way hard, and we got a really late start here. We're a little bit late today too, but we got to get into it. The news stops for nobody, and we have got to be here. By the way, I noticed today while I was setting up the titles, we are barreling down on 500 episodes of Contemporary. This Friday will be episode 500. I didn't even realize it'd come up that quick. We have been doing this for 500 episodes, and I've been here for 495 of them. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that amazing that we've been here for this long? We're coming up on 2 years of doing this, so that's craziness to me that we're getting to that point already. This February will be 2 years of doing Contemporary. It's amazing. And thank you guys, of course, for getting up here and joining us here on every morning here. But let's get the live chat up here and let's get started, because we've got a bunch of stuff to get to today. But before we get started, head on over, check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. You know, we started this out and it was freedomscoop.com, and I know that we're stalled out on trying to get the financing getting ready to go. Some of that's on me. Some of that was on the fact that I tried to do this across the Christmas holiday too, but some of that's on me. But go check out turnsofpagesproductions.com, where you can find, or will be able to once we get launched, find great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The Already Conservative, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The Porch Boys. So go and check all of those shows out. They're all great friends to Liberty. They're all great friends to fun. And they're all enjoyable programs to go back and watch. They pull the news and culture from very different aspects. They're still great people, so go and check all of them out and enjoy the programming and everything else that goes with them. And bookmark turnsofpagesproductions.com so you'll be right there when we launch, ready to go check out those programs. All right, let's have a look in at the Dow. The Dow turned down at the very, very end of the day, turning down to 34,297.73 after spending most of the day down and having just a little bit of a crest of up. Turned down just slightly towards the end of the day, closing just lower. It looks like the futures are looking upwards, so we'll see what's happening with that and where that goes. Looking in at the Bitcoin. Oh, I wanted to back up and just talk about the Dow for a second here, because Dan O'Donnell, one of the local terrestrial radio hosts, mentioned this yesterday morning here, and that is the fact that a lot of people are buying right now, and that's going to be buoying things up, as I said, because just like I say with the Bitcoin, when I talk about crypto as well, is that it's on sale right now, and a lot of the stocks are, for lack of a better word, on sale right now. A lot of them were extended, a lot of them were overvalued from trying to catch up with the inflationary report and the opening right now, and a lot of people were overbuying them. The market was oversaturated at 36,000. Given the number of people that we have in the workforce, the number of retirements, the number of 401ks that we have out here, the market was way oversaturated, and the big sell-off put a lot of these stocks on sale. So, I mean, you can get growth stocks right now, with the exception of FANG stocks, for a decent amount of money. This is not financial advice, but this is something to sit down with your financial advisor and look into right now, if that's something that interests you, or if you have a 401k that depends on it. So, go and look into that. The Bitcoin is also still on sale right now, but the sale is ending soon. The Bitcoin is at 37,758 US dollars and 10 US cents per Bitcoin. That is up 785.60, or 2.12% on the Bitcoin. So if that's something you're interested in, I still think Bitcoin glows a little bit, but if that's something you're interested in, your financial advisor can square that circle with you. Go and grab some Bitcoin. It looks like it might be the time to go and grab some of it. And of course, if you can't hold it or mold it, it's time to take more of it on, as our friend Ron Helton likes to say. Looking in at the scrap metal prices here, everything has turned up on the average. Looking in, copper, steel, and aluminum are all on the upswing, compared to yesterday especially. Looking in at copper, all copper plays are up right now. Everything is in the green. Looking in at iron, iron is a little bit more mixed right now. In fact, on the individual plays, only stainless steel is showing green. But it looks like the markets are favoring the iron as well. Conduit steel, light iron, number one, cast iron, rotors, complete car, shreddable steel are all showing down right now, but the average is showing upward. So we'll see what happens with that over the next 24 hours. On aluminum, with the exception of rims, is all in the green as well. Siding, aluminum, copper rim, radiators, cans, sheet aluminum, those are all up. Rims are down right now, so that's something to look into here. The individual plays, electric motors are down, ballasts are up. Lead is up, car and truck batteries are up. Catalytic converters have joined another catalytic converter, has joined the upswing off of this, with regular domestic cat adding to large foreign cat, small foreign cat, and large GM cat on the upswing. Small GM catalytic converters are still on the downswing. Compressors are up, alternators are up, carbide is up, hard drives are up, motherboards are up, power supplies are down, low-grade PC boards are down, excuse me, and a PC tower is up. So that's what we see coming off of the scrap. Of course, easily can turn a lot of this back into cash if you need to, or if the prices are right. So go and look in to your local scrap yard, see what your local prices are, and check your local scrap pile. Looking in at IBD for the morning. Dow Jones futures jump as Microsoft leads, Fed meeting, Tesla earnings loom for volatile market. From Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures rose sharply early Wednesday, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures, as Microsoft whipsawed higher following its earnings report and guidance. A new stock market rally attempt had disappointing session on Tuesday, especially growth names, as an afternoon rebound off lows faded into the close. Looking ahead, a crucial Federal Reserve meeting wraps up Wednesday afternoon. Tesla earnings are due after the close, with Apple looming on Thursday. Microsoft earnings, come on, stay in the same place. Microsoft earnings and revenue topped fiscal quarter 2 views. Initially, Microsoft stock fell 5% after hours, then reversed higher on strong guidance, now up 4% in pre-market action. Shares are set to rebound back above their 200-day line. Microsoft stock fell 2.7% at $288.49 on Tuesday, an inside day after Monday's big reversal off lows to slim gains. Oh, excuse me. Oh, didn't catch the mute at that quick enough on that one. Microsoft earnings and guidance are important for cloud computing rivals such as Amazon and Google parent Alphabet, as well as business software giants and even PC makers such as HP Incorporated. F5 Networks and Texas Instruments also reported late Tuesday. Both beat views, but F5 guided low on 2022 revenue, while Texas Instruments gave a bullish guidance. FFIV stock dived overnight, while Texas Instruments stock rallied solidly. I didn't know TI was still a thing. I figured with the smartphone generation, the computer generation, and the tablet generation, Texas Instruments would have fallen off by the wayside because, I mean, you don't need a graphing calculator anymore now that you can make a graphing calculator in your smartphone. But apparently they're still trucking along. Boeing reported a huge loss early Wednesday, taking another big charge, while revenue fell short even as cash flow turned positive. The Dow Jones aerospace giant gave no financial guidance for 2022, but is ramping up 737 MAX production. Boeing stock rose slightly in up and down pre-market trade. The two-day Fed meeting concludes Wednesday afternoon with policy announcement due at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. There is some speculation that Fed policymakers could speed up the bond taper yet again, ending asset purchases by mid-February instead of mid-March. That would signal an even faster shift to outright tightening, with Fed rate hikes and balance sheet reductions expected to start in the coming months. Fed Chief Jerome Powell gave his customary post-meeting press conference at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. His comments will be crucial in understanding how aggressive central bank will be in the coming months. In late 2018, rate hikes and balance sheet cuts helped trigger a bear market. The Fed quickly reversed course in early 2019, but inflation was tame back then. With inflation at multi-decade highs now, the Fed may feel compelled to keep tightening even if the stock market continues to sell off. In any case, the Fed announcement and Powell's commentary will likely spur big moves in stock prices and treasury yields. Tesla and Microsoft are on the IBD leaderboard. Microsoft is on the IBD long-term leaders. On the futures are looking really good right now, but of course, as they always say, that doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading, especially when we have the Fed meeting on tap here. Dow futures climbed 1.1% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures advanced 1.5%. NASDAQ futures jumped 2.1%. All have been solidly lower Tuesday evening, with NASDAQ futures tumbling at nearly 2% at one point. BA stock was a modest drag on the Dow Industrials, but Microsoft is a major weight in the Dow Jones, S&P 500, and NASDAQ 100. Several other big tech stocks rose overnight in sympathy with Microsoft, including Apple. U.S. crude oil prices rose about 1% before the open, extending strong gains. Natural gas futures jumped. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. I see you guys are talking about crypto and how bad that is, but I need to remind you that our Lord and Savior, Joe Jorgensen, told us that the only way to be truly free of the government is to put all of our money into cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin. Remember that. Remember what our Lord and Savior Joe Jorgensen said. Because we have to trust her. Because a group of people that we've never met in Orlando told us to. Alright, let's grab one from CNBC for this here. Dow futures rise more than 300 points ahead of an important Fed announcement from Fred Imbert. Stock futures rose Wednesday following another wild session for the market as investors await results from the Federal Reserve meeting, expecting to set the tone for 2022. Dow Industrial climbed about 330 points, or 1%. S&P 500 futures added 1.3%. NASDAQ 100 futures gained 2%. Microsoft shares rose 4.3% in early morning trading, but after the company issued better than expected quarterly revenue guidance, Boeing was marginally higher. After the aircraft maker reported positive cash flow for the first time since 2019, but took a $3.5 billion pre-tax charge on its 787 Dreamliner program. Tesla popped 3.6%, with the electric vehicle maker slated to report earnings after the bell. Moderna rallied 2.8% in the pre-market, rebounding after falling for 8 straight days. The Fed is set to conclude its two-day policy meeting Wednesday and make an announcement in the afternoon. The central bank is not expected to make any policy changes, but investors will look for clues on when and by how much the Fed will raise interest rates later this year. Market participants will also look for hints on further steps the Fed will take to unwind pandemic-era aid. Recent market volatility is unlikely to deter the Fed from implementing as much as 4 or more interest rate hikes this year. Well, that's quite a bit more than 2. The 2 that we were promised back in March of last year. Oh no, it'll be 5. We just need 2 interest rate hikes. Now they're talking about 4. And I'm curious to see what the number is to go with that too, and what that is going to do to the housing market. That is my biggest concern right now, is what happens to the housing market and whether or not it crashes the housing market, or whether it opens the door for BlackRock to come in and take over even more of the housing market. That is my biggest concern about what's happening here, and we'll see what happens and where that goes. While significant stock market volatility leading up to an FOMC meeting would normally weigh on Fed policy, and commentary that is not the case this time around, given the extreme levels of inflation seen in recent months, said Danielle DeMartino Booth, head of Quill Intelligence and former advisor to then Dallas Fed President Richard Fisher. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens with the interest rates and what happens with the subprimes, the regular primes, and the adjustable rate mortgages as we go along here. That's going to be a big weight on everything here. Let's come out of finance here. Let's talk about the big news of the day, and we're going to start the morning, of course, with our friends over at NPR. So I hope you all have your wallet out there. I bet you NPR will take your crypto, so get that Bitcoin out there for him, because NPR, it's not your money, comrade, and they need our money to continue to tell us all the communist ideals that they can print out here. So let's make sure that we hit that donate button. NPR, Never Printing Reality, National Progressive Radio. An appeals court has reinstated drop boxes for Wisconsin's February primary. This is from Sean Johnson, and this is the communist ideal that we need to make sure that we stay communist in Wisconsin and everywhere else out here. So let's see what it is they have to say. NPR, National Progressive Radio. A Wisconsin appeals court has temporarily blocked a judge's order that would have banned the use of absentee ballot drop boxes in the swing state. The court issued its decision Monday afternoon. Assuming it stands, it would mean drop boxes can continue to be used for Wisconsin's February 15th primary. Waukesha County Circuit Court Judge Michael Boren sided with the conservative Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty earlier this month, ruling nothing in state law allows for absentee ballot drop boxes. Boren initially ordered the Wisconsin Elections Commission to rescind its guidance to clerks on how to use the drop boxes by Thursday, saying the WEC had exceeded its authority, which it has when it issued the recommendations. At a follow-up hearing last week, Boren accelerated the deadline, moving it up to Monday. A coalition of groups, including the Disability Rights Wisconsin, the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin, and the Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice appealed, arguing in part that the ruling had created a mess because it was handed down too close to the February 15th spring primary. The U.S. Supreme Court has historically discouraged lower courts from changing the rules for voting too close to an election. Huge numbers of Wisconsin voters and a significant number of Wisconsin election officials have never participated in a Wisconsin election administered under the rules. Respondents convinced the circuit court to impose read and appeal by the groups to implement those rules days before an election is indeed a change to change how elections function in Wisconsin. In its Monday ruling, the appeals court agreed, writing that there may be voters who had already deposited their absentee ballots in drop boxes. The potential for voter confusion and uncertainty in administration is apparent in this situation, wrote the appeals court. If the current guidance is withdrawn at this stage of the election process, there is significant uncertainty to whether these votes would be counted. The court issued its order as a temporary stay, meaning it would only overturn the lower court's ruling until February 15th. The order could still be permanently overturned in a separate appeal, but the Wisconsin Supreme Court will have the final say in the case. So this is only for the primary, which will be coming up here in approximately 3 weeks. So that's what's going to happen with that and where that goes. As at this point, this is still going to be an embattled law, but as they said with NPR and as the totally nonpartisan places like Disability Rights of Wisconsin, League of Women Voters, and Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, as those totally nonpartisan organizations who totally don't have an agenda in all of this, come back out and say this will be probably appealed at a different court as it goes, but, some of these people have probably already dropped off their absentee ballots because honk honk, early voting hasn't started yet in Wisconsin, and yet they still might be in the drop box. So, that's what they say with that. And if you don't like the fact that I'm reading this crap, then there are other more progressive news shows for you, I'm guessing. But that's what they see coming off of that. Our first primary here in the state of Wisconsin happens in 3 weeks, and we'll see what happens with that. In other news in other states across the country here, coming out of ABC 7 New York, Judge grants stay in New York mask mandate case, keeping it in effect with pending appeal. This is no author given for ABC 7 Eyewitness News. A New York appellate judge granted a stay in the state's lawsuit over COVID-19 face mask mandate, meaning it remains in place while the case is appealed and schools must enforce it. New York State had quickly filed an appeal after a Supreme Court judge in Nassau Court ruled that the New York mask mandate couldn't be enforced. The mandate had been reinstituted over concerns about a winter surge in pinko-fucking-pox cases. As governor, my top priority is taking as much power as I can because I'm an empowered woman, said Governor Kathy Hochul after the stay was granted. These measures are critical tools to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and assert my dominance over the state, to make schools and businesses safe and save lives. I commend the AG for her defense of the health and safety of New Yorkers and applaud the Appellate Division, the second department, for siding with common sense and granting an interim stay to keep the state's important masking regulations in place. We will not stop fighting to protect New Yorkers, and we are confident that we will continue to prevail. However, some districts told parents that masks in the classes were optional Tuesday until the appeal was formally filed, leading to confusion in nearly 24 districts. Following the hearing, where the stay was granted, Judge Robert Miller reserved judgment and said a formal ruling would be forthcoming. Let's look at this embed here briefly.
All right, we'll see you then, Lee. Thank you. Now to some breaking news about the mask mandate in New York State. Keep your masks on, at least for now. A New York appellate court issuing a stay about an hour and a half ago, blocking a judge's ruling that Governor Hochul's mask requirement is unconstitutional. That issue, full-on battle tonight between the governor and the newly installed Nassau County executive, a staunch anti-masker who urged school districts to disregard the governor's order. This in a county ranking high for COVID cases in the state. With the latest, here's Eyewitness News reporter Stacey Sager.
The state's mask mandate in schools remains in effect, at least through Friday. A ruling that deemed it unconstitutional yesterday quite suddenly pits students and parents against school administrators in some districts today. In Manhasset,
that is a lie. You guys will all be sued. Watch me.
Parents were pushing back as the district still enforced the mandate. Some students as well who took off their masks, but
they rounded them up, put them in the library, and blocked them from leaving.
What we were told was that as soon as an appeal is filed, the stay is automatic. There's no additional.
Turns out a judge heard the case hours later, issuing this so-called interim stay. It keeps the mask mandate in effect, at least until questions about an appeal in this.
So, and that's two of them right there in a row, where the judges have come out to issue the stay in favor of Democrat causes, of Democrats' ideas. And with the Wisconsin side, with the one on the elections, I can maybe, if you really pushed me to it, I could see where they would come out and say that yes, this is definitely something that we need to appeal and keep in because some of these people have dropped off a ballot already in a drop box illegally, and we would hate to have them come down to City Hall and have to come back and vote again, or find out that they haven't voted already in the first place. Oh my God, that could be the end of the world. They might vote twice. Oh my God. But looking at this one here, this at this point is just... This is Hochul coming out and saying, no, I will have the final say in this. And, maybe Hochul shouldn't have the final say in all this. But That's what they say off of this. And I do think that there is a part of this here where New York is coming out and saying that they need to have the mask mandate in place because as the cases start to drop, they need to be able to take the credit for ending out the COVID. In spite of the fact that everything that they've done up until then has still led to outbreaks as it goes. So that's what we see coming up of that. From CNN, another update on a previous news story here. Nancy Pelosi said she's running for re-election from Annie Grayer. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced Tuesday that she plans to run for re-election, aiming to extend her more than 30-year run in Congress. If you need any sort of justification for term limits for Congress, it's standing right there in a red dress. There's your justification for term limits, right there. I'm running for re-election to Congress and respectfully seek your support, Pelosi. A Democrat from California said in a video message posted to her political Twitter account, "I would be greatly honored and grateful for it." Pelosi notably did not announce that she will run for Speaker in her video announcement. She had promised in 2018 that this term would be her last in the position, but she's not confirmed if that is still her plan. Pelosi's announcement for re-election comes as House Democrats are retiring in record numbers, as district maps are being withdrawn by Republican-controlled state legislatures to favor GOP lawmakers. Yeah, that's really what happened in California, wasn't it, Devin Nunes? Or Illinois, by the way, Adam Kinzinger. And the party faces potentially challenging midterm elections this fall. Democratic Rep. Jim Cooper of Tennessee on Tuesday was the latest Democrat to announce his retirement at the end of this Congress, bringing the total number of House Democrats retiring at the end of the term up to 29. But as a prolific fundraiser and experienced as a dealmaker, Pelosi is seen as crucial to helping Democrats running across the country. That's not how the majority of the country sees Nancy Pelosi right now. I hate to tell you this. And that's not how they saw her coming into 2020, 2018, 2016, 2014, or even all the way back to 2008. Nobody's seen Nancy Pelosi as a deal maker. In addition to retirements, Pelosi continues to grapple with how the slim Democratic majority in Congress is preventing the party from passing key pieces of President Brandon's agenda. Although Pelosi was able to finesse the bipartisan infrastructure bill through Congress, Biden's social safety net plan, known as Build Back Bullshit, and key voting rights legislation remains stalled in the Senate due to factions and disagreements within the party on how to proceed. While we've made progress, much more needs to be done to improve people's lives, Pelosi said. Our democracy is at risk because of the assault on the truth, the assault on the U.S. Capitol, and the state-by-state assault on voting rights. This election is crucial. I need more power. Nothing less is at stake than our democracy. But as we say, we don't agonize. We organize. And she concluded her heartfelt, touching speech like that. So, there you go. Nancy Pelosi is also running for re-election once again in her deep, deep blue district. But hey, don't question how California and Illinois and Maryland gerrymandered their states. Question how red states gerrymandered their states. From ABC News. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Ukraine. The U.S. warns Russian attack may be imminent. Ukraine disagrees. Here's why. From Connor Finnegan. As the U.S. continues to warn that the threat of Russian attack on Ukraine remains imminent, there's one dissenting voice that has grown stronger. The Ukraine. Former President from President Volodymyr Zelensky down, the Ukrainian government has tried to urge calm with senior officials, making clear in recent days that they don't see the risks now as any more heightened than over the last 8 years of Russian-stoked conflict in the eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar, for example, said the number of Russian troops massed on Ukraine's border are not enough for a full-scale invasion. Instead, Russian leader Vladimir Putin is using the troop buildup primarily to politically blackmail the West and pressure the Ukraine, as she wrote in a Facebook post. Russia's tactical goal is to provoke integral divisions in our society, sow fear and panic, destabilize the internal situation, she added. Ukrainian concern that fear and panic could spread, sending Ukraine's economy spiraling, or creating political turmoil has started to create divisions between the US and the Ukraine, despite efforts on both sides to make it clear they stand united against Russian aggression. It is all under control. There are no reasons to panic, Zelensky said in a televised address to his country on Monday night. But the speech meant more time on the pinko fucking pox than Russia. Some of the steps the U.S. has taken in recent days, some in Kiev fear, are playing Moscow's playbook, stoking fear and panic. That includes the State Department's decision to draw down the U.S. Embassy, ordering diplomats' families to evacuate, and authorizing non-emergency staff to depart if they choose. State Department spokesperson Ned Price called it a prudent precaution, but his Ukrainian counterpart, Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Oleg Nikolenko, criticized it as a premature one and an instance of excessive caution. The Russian Federation is currently taking active efforts to destabilize the situation in the Ukraine. A large amount of misinformation, manipulation, and fakes are spreading in Ukrainian and international media in order to cause panic among Ukrainians and foreigners, intimidate businesses, and undermine the economic and financial stability of our state. In this situation, it's important to soberly assess the risks and stay calm, Nikolenko said. Just 4 countries have followed the US to varying degrees: the UK, Australia, Canada, and Germany. We cannot allow ourselves for that to happen, that our economy falls and people cross into a state of panic. That is a dangerous situation for our country and will be far easier to then manipulate us. And that is Russia's goal, warned Alexei Danilov, a top Ukrainian national security official. So that's interesting to sit back and see. And of course, now there's some economic damage that's already apparent. Yields on Ukrainian sovereign euro bonds in US dollars suddenly shot up 11 to 14% on January 14th and had risen even higher since, losing Ukrainian access to international financial markets, according to Anders Aslund, a senior fellow at Stockholm Free World Forum. And it's interesting to watch. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to go with off of this because out of the Ukraine, first and foremost, the Brandon administration does stand to benefit if there is some sort of instance in which the Ukrainians fold and buckle. There is benefit to the Brandon administration if we start a full-scale war over the Ukrainian border. And also keep in mind, and I warned you about this 3 years ago at this point, in 2019, before Biden got into the race for presidency, as they were going through the first impeachment, I warned about this. I said Ukraine is going to be used at some point as a political tool if some people don't get their way. I wasn't sure how it was going to work. I didn't think that Joe Biden had a chance of, well, A, he hadn't announced in the first place, but I didn't think at the time that a Democrat had a chance in hell of winning. It was the economy, stupid. In fact, I thought it was going to be an international coalition that set all this stuff into motion. But yet, here we sit, with President Brandon, sitting up there on the chair looking at this and, all but inviting in a press conference Russia to make a minor incursion into the Ukraine. And the U.S. saying, hey, let's get all our embassy staff out of here. Let's get all your families out of here. Hey, by the way, we might not be able to evacuate everybody out of here. So, we better get you over to Germany or to a commercial flight because we might not be able to do anything. And here's the Ukraine, the people who are actually at the center of this saying, dude, this isn't going how you're saying that it is. So I'll be the first one to admit, I have no idea where this is going because I haven't seen any of the tactical reports. I haven't seen the troop draw-ups on the borders, how many troops are there, what kind of troop response that the Ukraine has, that NATO has. But this is starting to seem a little bit fishy, and I mean, it looked somewhat realistic until the Ukraine said, hey, calm down, guys. But that's what we'll see going off of that. Let's grab one from Insider. The U.S. says it won't fight for Ukraine if Putin invades, but could still get pulled into a conflict with Russia, experts warn. From John Haltiwanger and Ryan Pickrell. Russia is banging the war drum on Ukraine's doorstep as tens of thousands of Russian troops mass along the border and raise alarms across the Western world. Europe hasn't faced a crisis on this scale since the days of the Cold War. Amid rising tensions, the U.S. in coordination with its allies has placed 8,500 troops on heightened alert for a potential deployment to Eastern Europe, and NATO has sent additional ships and fighter jets to the region as members of the alliance send Ukraine military assistance, including lethal aid. But in the event that Vladimir Putin gives the order for an invasion of the Ukraine, the U.S. and its NATO allies are unlikely to deploy troops in its defense. Former U.S. diplomats and experts say any U.S. troop deployments would be to NATO countries in the region, not to the Ukraine, and they'd be sent as a deterrent, meaning they're meant to make Putin think twice about expanding any territorial conquest beyond the Ukraine. I don't think there is escalation scenario that leads us to a direct confrontation between U.S. and Russia in Ukraine, Ivo Dalder, former U.S. ambassador to NATO, told Insider. I don't know if Ivo Dalder has an accent or not, but he's a NATO ambassador anyway, and he's over on that end of the world, and he's got an odd last name. Anything is possible, of course, he said, but clearly the intent of Biden admin and of NATO is not to be military involved in direct conflict inside of Ukraine. That is pretty big line drawn on direct military engagement of US troops or NATO troops. Still, there's a limited risk that the U.S. could be dragged into the conflict at some point, according to some experts Insider spoke to. A big move by Putin may signal a new era, as their thinking goes, of elevated tensions between Russia and the West, potentially sparking new conflicts. There are also concerns Russian aggression may prompt U.S. responses like sanctions that are so drastic that they back Putin into a corner, raising the prospect he may try to broaden his effort. Yes, President Biden, who came out and said, "Oh, no, you know what? Let's get all those sanctions off of you so we can stop selling evil gasoline to Germany. And Russia can start being the evil one to sell the gasoline to Germany and increase climate change. Let's drop those sanctions." Yes, that President Biden is going to put sanctions on Russia. Let's see. Dollar said the deployment of U.S. troops to Eastern Europe would be designed to send a signal to both our allies and the Russians that whatever you're contemplating with the Ukraine, don't think that means you could do the same with regard to any NATO country. Russia has roughly 100,000 troops on Ukraine's border. Comparatively, if the U.S. were to send a far more modest force of 8,500 troops to the region, it would clearly not be meant to provide an offensive capability, Dollar said. That's an interesting take, Randy. This will result in a standoff until Trump is reelected, then Trump will hug Putin on live TV, and NATO UN forces will come together against us in Russia in World War III. Interesting. Let's see. I do not see U.S. and NATO troops taking military action against Russia should Russia launch an attack on the Ukraine. Stephen Pfeiffer, U.S. ambassador to Ukraine from 1998 to 2000, told Insider. President Biden and NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg, among others, have ruled that out. But you would see a greater flow of military assistance to the Ukraine to help Ukrainians defend themselves. The U.S. has provided the Ukraine with billions in military assistance since 2014, when Russia invaded and annexed Crimea, including $650 million in the past year alone. The Kremlin, since 2014, has supported rebels against Ukrainian forces in a war that's estimated to have killed over 13,000 and displaced 1.5 million. Ukraine, over that period, has received Javelin anti-tank missiles, small arms and ammunition, and patrol boats from the U.S., among other forms of assistance. So that's what the experts are saying that we're going to do in the Ukraine. As once again our president comes out and says, "Oh, come on, just a little incursion, just a little bit of one, okay? Come on, man." From the Associated Press, we probably won't spend a lot of time on this because a lot of this was covered in the ABC article. Ukrainian leaders stay calm. Russia invasion is not imminent. From Uras Karmanau. Ukraine's leaders sought Tuesday to reassure the nation that an invasion from neighboring Russia was not imminent, even as they acknowledged the threat is real and received a shipment of U.S. military equipment to shore up their defenses. Moscow has denied it is planning an assault, but has massed an estimated 100,000 troops near the Ukraine in recent weeks and is holding military drills at multiple locations in Russia that has led the U.S. and its NATO allies to rush to prepare for a possible war. U.S. President Joe Biden told reporters that Russian President Vladimir Putin continues to build strong forces along Ukraine's border, and an attack would be the largest invasion since World War II. It would change the world. Several rounds of high-stake diplomacy have failed to yield any breakthroughs, and tensions escalated further this week. NATO said it was bolstering its deterrence in the Baltic Sea region, and the U.S. ordered 8,500 troops on higher alert for potential deployment to Europe as part of an alliance response force if necessary. British PM Boris Johnson also said, I'm prepared to send troops to protect NATO allies in Europe. We have no intention of putting American forces or NATO forces in the Ukraine, Biden said, adding that there would be serious economic consequences for Putin, including personal sanctions, in the event of an invasion. In a show of European unity in Berlin, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron called for an easing of the crisis. Scholz said that he wanted clear steps from Russia that will contribute to a de-escalation of the situation. Macron, who said he would talk to Putin by phone on Friday, added, "If there is aggression, there will be retaliation, and the cost will be very high. I fought in your general direction." The U.S. and its allies have threatened sanctions like never before. Moscow sent its military into the Ukraine, but have given few details, saying it's best to keep Putin guessing. The U.S. State Department has ordered the families of all American personnel at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev to leave the country, and said that non-essential embassy staff could leave. Britain said too. It was withdrawing some diplomats and dependents from its embassy. The families and Canadian diplomatic staff have also been told to leave. Ukrainian authorities, however, have sought to project calm, speaking in the second televised speech of the nation as many days. President Volodymyr Zelensky urged Ukrainians not to panic. "We're strong enough to keep everything under control and derail any attempts at destabilization," he said. The decision by U.S., Britain, Australia, Germany, and Canada to withdraw some of their diplomats and dependents from Kiev doesn't necessarily signal an inevitable escalation, and is part of the complex diplomatic game, he said. "We're working together with our partners as a single team." Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov told Parliament that, "As of today, there are no grounds to believe Russia will invade imminently, noting that troops have not formed what he called a battle group to force its way over the border. "Do not worry, sleep well," he said. "We need to have bags packed." Or, I'm sorry, no need. That changes the tone of the entire message. "No need to have bags packed." In an interview late Monday, however, he acknowledged risky scenarios are possible. Russia has said Western accusations it is planning to attack are merely a cover for NATO's own planned provocations. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov again accused the U.S. of fomenting tensions around the Ukraine, a former Soviet state that has been in a conflict with Russia for almost 8 years. Moscow has rejected Western demands to pull its troops back from areas near the Ukraine, saying it will deploy and train them wherever it's necessary on its territory as a response to what it called hostile moves by the U.S. and its allies. Thousands of troops from Russia's southern and western military districts took part Tuesday in readiness drills in those regions in maneuvers involving Iskander missiles and dozens of warplanes. So, a few things that are working along with that, and yes, the Ukraine is saying, no need to worry. There is no imminent invasion coming here, which, I mean, we should be questioning anyway, because, I mean, when has the U.S. ever manipulated the world into doing what they want to try to get us into a wartime situation? Weapons of mass destruction. I do find it funny that the Mises people especially are coming over on Twitter and saying, "Oh, well, Joe Jorgensen wouldn't have started a war with Russia." Well, yeah, that's right, because throwaway candidates aren't allowed to make military decisions. So that's what we see off of that. From the Daily Wire. Shifting to another foreign theater that's possibly going to blow up in the near future here. 3 Biden admin negotiators leave the team working on Iran nuclear deal because Biden is being too soft. Report. Three Biden admin negotiators are trying to get Iran to enter a nuclear deal have left the team because they reportedly believe that Democratic President Biden was being too soft on Iran. U.S. officials confirmed over the weekend that Richard Nephew, the Deputy Special Envoy for Iran, has left the team. Mr. Nephew, an architect of previous economic sanctions on Iran, had advocated for a tougher posture in the current negotiations, and he hasn't attended the talks in Vienna since early December. The Wall Street Journal reported 2 other members of the team, which is led by State Department vet Robert Malley, have stepped back from the talks, the People Familiar said, because they also wanted a harder negotiating stance. The team has been divided over disagreements on how strictly existing sanctions should be enforced and at what point they should walk away from the table, as some experts warn that Iran is trying to prolong talks while they continue to work on their nuclear program. The divisions come at a pivotal time, with the U.S. and European officials warning that only a few weeks remain to rescue the 2015 deal before Iran acquires the know-how and capability to quickly produce enough nuclear fuel for a bomb, the report added. Under the agreement, the U.S. lifted most international sanctions in Tehran in exchange for strict but temporary limits on Iran's nuclear work. The Trump admin exited the agreement, seeing as it's insufficient to restrain Iran, and the Biden admin is trying to reverse course. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett signaled to the world late last year that Israel was preparing to take action against Iran as it rapidly neared the point of having enough nuclear material to build a nuclear bomb, something that he vowed Israel would never allow to happen. Iran's nuclear program is at a critical point. All red lines have been crossed, inspections ignored, all wishful thinking proven false, he said at the UN. Iran is currently violating the IAEA's safeguard agreements and is getting away with it. They harass inspectors and sabotage their investigations, and they're getting away with it. They enrich uranium to the level of 60%, which is only one step short of weapons-grade material, and they're getting away with it. Well, to be fair, Iran has been a week away from a nuclear weapon since 1981. Just so you're all aware of that.
if they're actually making a weapon and they actually turn it on somebody, they will get their asses pounded into the ground. And I don't think that they're going to wipe Israel off the map on their first attempt either. They're not real smart over there. Ever since the Persian Empire has fallen, they're not real bright over there. So it's definitely worth watching to see what it is that they do, but I don't think a lot of this is our business. But I guess we'll see what happens and where that goes. From the Hill. January 6th probe Royals Cheney race in Wyoming. From Tal Axelrod. Dude, Cheney is not getting reelected in Wyoming. She burned her bridge with the people she represents when she voted yes for impeachment. Because the people in Wyoming said, no, don't do that, please. We like this guy. We don't care what it is that you think. You're a representative. You're not the final decision. From Tal Axelrod. As the House Committee investigating the Selfie Fest on the Capitol escalates its inquiry, its actions are reverberating in Rep. Liz Cheney's knife fight of a House primary more than 1,500 miles away. Cheney, the panel's vice chair who broke with her party to help lead the committee, is fighting for her political life as Republicans in Wyoming and Washington seethe over her criticism of the former president and other Republicans about the Selfie Fest. She will face off in an August primary against attorney Harriet Hageman, who is backed by Trump and his allies. The race is already anticipated to be among the most contentious in the nation, with Trump vowing to go to war to expel his chief intra-party dissident, and as the January 6th committee's probe ramps up, with subpoenas inching closer to the former president's inner circle, so too will Wyoming's already incendiary primary pitting Cheney against the GOP's de facto leader. I think that the race itself will be really ugly, said former Campbell County Commissioner Mark Christensen. I would say probably in the next month or two, we're going to see things get much more aggressive out here. The January 6th panel is in the midst of a flurry of activity, filing an avalanche of subpoenas and requests for voluntary testimony from several figures involved in the riot who were around Trump in the days surrounding it. While the committee has been filing subpoenas for months, they have increasingly begun focusing on those close with the former president. The group subpoenaed and obtained phone records associated with Eric Trump, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who is engaged to Donald Trump Jr., Rudy Giuliani, Trump's former personal attorney, and 3 other campaign attorneys linked with efforts to overturn the 2020 election results were also hit with subpoenas. Just last Thursday, the panel asked Ivanka Trump, the former president's daughter and a top White House advisor during his administration, to voluntarily appear before it. And earlier this month, the body's chairman said he would like to ask former Vice President Mike Pence to also sit in with the committee. Those developments only compound on other high-profile moves in the past months, including voting to hold former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows in contempt for his refusal to come back down and tell them everything that they wanted to know, and fighting the Supreme Court over documents Donald Trump has sought to conceal. And with Cheney taking the lead role in the panel, the ongoing stream of subpoenas and other requests opens her up to attacks from Trump's disgruntled base. Yeah, this is, of course, a completely objective article. I certainly think that's going to hurt her, especially here in Wyoming, when you've got an extremely conservative base, said State Rep. Landon Brown, a Cheney ally who believes that she still retains an edge in the primary. I think this probably will be the bloodiest race in Wyoming's history. Well, good. And that's the thing. Good. Absolutely good. Get rid of her. No more Romneys, no more Bushes, no more Cheneys. Get rid of all of them. Get rid of all the Warhawks. I mean, Liz Cheney's probably sitting down there touching herself, rubbing herself at the thought of where we could be going back to war. Because, I mean, they don't care about hot war. They don't give a fuck about what's going on in the Ukraine. They don't care about the Ukraine. Well, people like Liz Cheney and her overweight fat father who murdered somebody while hunting, and the Bushes and the Romneyites, what they care about is having live civilian targets for their Raytheon buddies. That's what they care about. They don't care about any of this stuff. They care about lining their own pockets, and it's time to get rid of these people. That's what it's time to do. Liz Cheney is probably pissed that, she's supposed to have this safe seat. Because she's a Cheney. She can do whatever she wants in Wyoming. And then she turns around and defies the people of Wyoming and wonder why she's about to get fucking voted out. Which is good. Get rid of her. From The Blaze, Liz Cheney ally says primary challenger, challenged by Trump-backed candidate, will be the bloodiest race in Wyoming history. I think this is a lot of the same news as before. This is Landon Brown. Yeah, this is the same news as before. We'll skip this one. All right, let's look at the truckers. Because allegedly a convoy went across Canada yesterday and into the capital to come back and protest their vaccine mandates. Let's have a look at what that looked like. Even the panel van coming through onto this here. Which to some level, one of the things, and this is probably stopping some of the commerce in Canada itself, because at some level, one of the things you have to remember about this is the fact that anytime these big trucks like this aren't loaded, because, and you see them bobtailed off of there, you see this guy, there's not a trailer in sight. You just see these bobtail trucks off of there going down towards the Capitol. If those trucks aren't loaded, they're not making money. They're not. And that's plain and simple off of it here. And of course, if you follow this this trend over on Twitter, you saw all the Canadians out there, well, just get the vaccine there, bigot, eh? That's all that you need to do. Just go and get the vaccine. Stop protesting. Stop doing it. Stop going against what the government tells you to do there, eh? And go get the vaccine. And then others are quick to point out the fact that let's drop the volume on this a little bit, between what's over on the bridge, about 50 people, and 25 people on the side of the road, oh, there's only 75 people there on the protest there, eh? Well, there's only 125 people in Canada, so 75 is a majority at this point. But that's what they're doing, to come back out and point them out and say, hey, we like the idea of having everything be voluntary, but we don't want to have the mandates, eh? Which is what we should be doing at this point. That is what we should be doing. I've said it before, too, and it's the thing with the mandate, I do think was put into place so that all these people out here, all these Biden people, would have political enemies to come back out and blame when things were going wrong here. Because I've told you, and I've said this before, I'd be willing to bet that the number of fully vaccinated in this country would be 80 to 90% if the branded admin, instead of, on the taxpayer dime, making all these lotteries and all these giveaways and then starting to do all these mandates and everything else back up off of this. If they'd have just said, hey man, so, here, the place you usually get your flu shot. Yeah, you can go get your coronavirus vaccine over there. And then left it alone. People have been desperate, and they believe what the government says when the government says, oh yeah, no, we'll get this vaccine and it'll go back to normal. But when they started taking punitive actions against the dissenters, or going out there and, again, using taxpayer money to give away trucks and cash and vacations and trips to the state park and shit like that over and over again, there did seem to be something else going on with this entire thing. I usually follow the money. I don't think that there's a nefarious plot to depopulate the human race, but I follow the money. And Pfizer, who donates to Democrats and some establishment Republicans, Moderna, BioNTech, who all donate to globalist candidates around the world, have all seen record profits come back in. Reading from Reuters, truckers fighting government vaccine mandate march to the Canadian capital. I have got no author given on this one. Convoy of truckers started their march from Vancouver on Sunday to the Canadian capital, city of Ottawa, to protest the government's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for truckers, which the industry says would create driver shortages and fuel inflation. Truckers, under the banner Freedom Convoy 2022, raised 2.7 million Canadian dollars, or about 2.2 million US dollars, by Sunday through a GoFundMe campaign to fight the mandate. These funds raised would be used to help with the cost of fuel, food, and lodgings. Why the fuck would they need lodgings? They have a bed behind the driver's seat. The GoFundMe page said the convoy is expected to reach Ottawa on January 29th. The trucking industry is vital to ensure a smooth flow of goods, since more than 2/3 of the $650 Canadian billion or 521 billion US dollars in goods traded annually between Canada and the United States travels on roads. But as many as 32,000 or 20% of the 160,000 Canadian and American cross-border truck drivers may be taken off the roads due to the mandate, the Canadian Trucking Alliance estimates. The CTA, however, said that in a statement on Saturday, it does not support any protests on public roadways, and the only way to cross the border on a commercial truck is by getting vaccinated. Canada imposed the vaccine mandate for the trucking industry January 15th, under which unvaccinated Canadian truckers re-entering Canada from the US must get tested for the pinko pox and quarantine themselves. Driver shortages are expected to fuel red-hot inflation, which is running at a 3-decade high, industry lobby groups have said. Prime Minister Trudeau has resisted industry pressure to delay the mandate since it was first announced in November. And that's it. I mean, that's the thing. If you really want this thing, and again, if you open this up and say, hey, the place where you normally get your flu shot, hey, you can go and get this, you'd probably have way higher numbers of vaccinated people than to put mandates on here and say, hey, you got to go back and do this. Otherwise, we can't let you enter the country and we have to quarantine you for 2 weeks there, eh? You got to sit in this hotel on your own cost. And here's another one coming from the same thing. Truckers Against Vax Mandate raise millions. GoFundMe withholds the funds. From Dylan Burrows. GoFundMe has blocked access to over $4.5 million raised by a Canadian trucker Freedom Convoy protesting the pinko pox vaccine mandates. The fundraising campaign has received donations from more than 60,000 donors as of Tuesday. We require that fundraisers be transparent about how the flow of funds, have a clear plan for how those funds will be spent. In this case, we're in touch with the organizer to verify that information. Rachel Hollis, a GoFundMe spokeswoman, sent an email according to the Toronto Star. Really? Because I made a GoFundMe that just said, help me launch my webpage. And that money is still sitting in an account right now, which I need to get it transferred over to the people who are in charge of it. But that money is in the account right now without a clear, transparent way of how those funds will be spent. This is a bullshit idea, and you should not be using GoFundMe for anything at this point. Funds will be safely held until the organizers are able to provide the documentation to our team about how the funds will be properly distributed, the report added. The fundraiser clearly outlines its purpose in the description of the GoFundMe page. To our fellow Canadians, the time for political overreach is over. Our current government is implementing rules and mandates that are destroying the foundation of our businesses, industries, and livelihoods. Canadians have been integral to the fabric of humanity in many ways that have shaped that planet, organizer Tamara Lich said. We're a peaceful country, and has helped protect nations across the globe from tyrannical governments who oppress their people, and now it seems it is happening here. I have to step up here for just a second. We're taking our fight to the doorsteps of our federal government and demanding that they cease all mandates against its people, the page said. So, yeah, and I'm sure that they have a full-on plan, and they went to go back and organize and went correctly for GoFundMe. They did everything right. It's just this is a highly political situation, and GoFundMe doesn't want to touch it. Which is, once again, why you should not be using GoFundMe. I've got to step. I will be right back with you guys. It's funny, I didn't start getting cold-like symptoms until a week after I got the pinko fucking pox, and now it's just like, every time I talk, especially early in the morning, it's like, ugh, everything through the nose. But, let's keep going here. This one comes from the op-ed page over on NBC. Shifting gears here, talking about the March for Life. Patriot Front's anti-abortion advocacy at March for Life sends a clear message. The white supremacist dog whistle is coming from inside the house. By Renee Bracey Sherman, founder and executive director of We Testify, and Liz Winstead, co-creator of The Daily Show, and the founder and chief creative officer for Abortion Access Front. On Friday, anti-abortion organizers once again held the March for Life, an annual gathering on the National Mall featuring anti-abortion rights leaders and school children bussed in from across the country. Although attendance numbers have waned in recent years, and despite a pandemic, organizers took to the stage Friday to boast about their political wins. Not surprisingly, the decades-long effort to reshape the Supreme Court and potentially recriminalizing abortion by overturning Roe v. Wade was front and center. The speakers appropriated social justice language, claiming that the anti-abortion rights movement is one of love, equality in the womb, and pro-life is pro-woman. And that the real racists are those who stand against state-sanctioned violence and coercion and believe everyone should be able to decide whether, when, and how to grow their families. That's the version of the rally they want you to see. What was happening off stage was far more insidious, and it was historically predictable. Volume up for this clip. Thank you, brother. Christian Fascist Patriot Front made their presence heard and seen at the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. I heard several March for Life participants thank them for showing up and being pro-life.
Flyer? Appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming out. You recognize it? Hell yeah, brother.
Joe Flag.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, we're totally conservatives.
Would you like a flyer, sir? Oh, I got a couple.
Be safe out there, guys.
Thank you very much. You as well, sir.
Stay safe, guys.
Thank you as well. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for supporting the right to life.
Hey, look, there's another person in a mask that's out there saying thank you to these people, too. Dude, Patriot Front is a fucking plant, and everybody knows it at this point. They keep trying to convince you that these people are the right wing, the extreme right wing. No. And of course, they're going to show up to every major right wing march and protests and this and that and the next thing here. Oh, look, hey, there's conveniently Patriot Front right there. During the rally, videos began circulating on Twitter showing white supremacists, including members of Patriot Front. Yeah, front, that's the right word for them.
An extremist outfit that believes the white population is being replaced and needs to get its birth rates up. Walking with other March for Life attendees, the uniformed and masked patriots carried shields and waved banners that read, "Strong families make strong nations." In other videos, attendees can be seen thanking Patriot Front members for attending and supporting the right to life, telling them to be safe out there, and accepting their flyers. The crowd was jovial, as one reportedly told photojournalists who explained that Patriot Front was a Christian fascist organization. Well, as long as they're pro-life. I'm sure that was a plant out there too. Dude, nobody believes Patriot Front. Nobody in their right mind believes Patriot Front is a real organization. Nobody believes this. They keep trying to bring this back up and make it so that people believe this. So they keep trying to put Patriot Front right up front where everybody can see it. Nobody believes Patriot Front. Excuse me. Not one person believes in Patriot Front at this point. From CNN, exclusive federal persecutors looking at 2020 fake elector certifications. Deputy AG tells CNN from Evan Perez and Tierney Sneed. Yeah, Patriot Front is like fetch. Stop trying to make Patriot Front happen. It's never going to happen. Federal prosecutors are reviewing fake electoral college certifications that declared former President Trump the winner of states that he lost. Deputy AG Lisa Monaco told CNN on Tuesday. "We've received these referrals. Our prosecutors are looking at those, and I can't say anything more on the ongoing investigations," Monaco said in an exclusive interview. The fake certificates, falsely declaring Trump's victory, were sent to the National Archives by Trump's allies in mid-December of 2020. They have attracted public scrutiny amid the House's January 6 selfie fest into the pressure campaign that sought to reverse Trump's electoral defeat. Honk honk. Monaco did not go into detail about what else prosecutors are looking at from the partisan attempt to subvert the 2020 vote count. She said, more broadly, the Justice Department was going to follow the facts and the law wherever they lead to address conduct of any kind and at any level that is part of the assault on our democracy. This is the first time that the Justice Department has commented on requests from lawmakers and state officials that investigate the fake certifications. These certificates contain the signatures of Trump supporters who falsely claimed to be the rightful electors in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, and New Mexico. All states that President Biden had won. Some of the certificates were sent by top officials representing the Republican Party in each state, according to the documents, which were obtained and made public by the watchdog group American Oversight. Okay, we gotta talk about this here. I didn't want to do this. We gotta talk about this. If YouTube hasn't scrubbed the video. Well, we've got the 10-minute Fox News article off of this, which of course, yeah, they're not going to show us here. Yep, right here. A group of Hollywood celebrities are calling on Republican electors in the Electoral College to disregard the state's voting results. It's too bad that this is video documented. I mean, we wouldn't want to go back there and find out that Martin Sheen and political Hollywood celebrities have committed some sort of law, some sort of crime, rather.
Republican members of the Electoral College, this message is for you. As you know, our founding fathers built the Electoral College to safeguard the American people from the dangers of a demagogue and to ensure that the presidency only goes to someone who is to an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications.
An eminent degree. Someone who is highly qualified for the job.
The Electoral College was created specifically to prevent an unfit candidate from becoming president.
There are 538 members of the Electoral College. You, and just 36 other conscientious Republican electors could make a difference.
By voting your conscience on December 19th.
And thereby shaping the future of our nation.
I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton.
I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton.
I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton.
As you know, the Constitution gives electors the right to vote for any eligible person.
Any eligible person, no matter which party they belong to.
But it should certainly be someone you consider especially competent.
Especially competent to serve as President of the United States of America.
By voting your conscience, you and other brave Republican electors can give the House of Representatives the option to select a qualified candidate for the presidency.
I stand with you.
I stand with you.
I stand with you.
I stand with you in support and solidarity with conservatives, independents, and liberals.
And all citizens of the United States.
The American people trust that your voice speaks for us all.
And that you will make yourself heard through the constitutional responsibility granted to you by Alexander Hamilton himself.
What is evident is that Donald Trump lacks more than the qualifications to be president.
He lacks the necessary stability.
And clearly the respect for the Constitution of our great nation.
You have position,
the authority,
and the opportunity to go down in the books as an American hero
who changed the course of history.
And you have my respect.
You have my respect.
You have my respect.
For your patriotism.
And service to the American people. Unite for America.
Boy, it would sure be a shame if there was documented proof that Hollywood celebrities were trying to change the slate of electors to do what they wanted instead of what the American people wanted. Man, oh man, that would sure be a shame, wouldn't it? Certificates contain the signatures of Trump. Let's see here. In response to Monaco's new comments, Wisconsin AG Josh Kaul told CNN in a statement that it was critical that the federal government fully investigates and prosecutes any unlawful actions in furtherance of any seditious conspiracy.
Members of the Electoral College, this message is for you. As you know, our founding fathers built the Electoral College to safeguard the American...
That sounds like a seditious conspiracy, doesn't it? New Mexico AG Hector Balderas, a Democrat, told CNN in a statement on Tuesday that he is pleased the DOJ is looking into this matter, and as these disturbing allegations require that federal authorities partner with state law enforcement agencies across the country to ensure integrity in the election process. The New Mexico AG's office previously said it's reviewing the matter under state law, and like other states has referred to the Justice Department via their U.S. Attorney's Office. We have received information from the New Mexico AG's office, but we can't comment on it at this time, Scott Howell, a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney of New Mexico, told CNN on Monday. In her interview with CNN, Monaco also touted the efforts the Justice Department has made to address the threats and harassment that election officials have faced. I'm concerned about the really disturbing nature of threats that we've seen. They've been disturbingly aggressive and violent and personal, Monaco said. She pointed to an indictment unveiled by the Justice Department last week alleging that a Texas man had threatened to kill Georgia election officials. Well, what else could be some sort of coercion?
Republican members of the Electoral College, this message is for you. As you know, our founding fathers built the Electoral College to safeguard the American people from the dangers of a demagogue and to ensure that the presidency only goes to someone who is to an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications.
Boy, by the definitions that are laid out by CNN, that sure sounds like a seditious conspiracy to overturn an election. From the Associated Press. FDA halts the use of antibody drugs that don't work versus Omicron. From Matthew Perrone. We were talking about this on the Discord yesterday. Because Midget B, not our Discord, we were talking about in Porch Boys Discord, because Midget B asked the question if anybody had actually found the study that said that the Regeneron doesn't work against Omicron, and I did find the study. The study's very short.
It's actually one sentence, the study for that. I took that and I said, yeah, here's the study. It's very short. All it says is, get the vaccine, bigot. COVID-19 antibody drugs from Regeneron and Eli Lilly should no longer be used because they don't work against the Ermagerd variant that now accounts for nearly all U.S. infections, U.S. health regulators said on Monday. The FDA said it was revoking emergency authorization for both drugs, which were purchased by the federal government and have been administered to millions of Americans. With the pinko fucking pox, the drugs prove effective against future variants. The FDA said it could reauthorize their use. The regulatory move was expected because both drug makers said the infusion drugs are less able to target Ermagerd due to its mutations. Still, the federal action could trigger pushback from some Republican governors who have continued promoting the drugs against the advice of health experts. Ermagerd's resistance in 2 leading monoclonal antibody medicines has upended the treatment playbook for the pinko pox in recent weeks. Doctors have alternative therapies to battle early pinko pox cases, including 2 new antiviral pills, one of which is that's made by Pfizer. You know that word that we can't say on YouTube. And Merck, both are in short supply. An antibody drug from GlaxoSmithKline, which is which also we can't say on YouTube, that remains effective, is also in short supply because they're name brand, and you can get those pills of both of those things that we can't say on YouTube for pennies on the pill because they're in such high use across the world. The drugs are lab-made versions of virus-blocking antibodies. They're intended to head off severe diseases and death by supplying concentrated doses of one of the 2 antibodies early as an infection. Then President Trump received Regeneron's antibody combination after he tested positive for the pinko pox in 2020. So, yes, at this point, you're Regeneron. It doesn't work anymore. Don't use it anymore. Don't request it. The doctors they'll be fined and they'll lose their licenses if they prescribe it. Just don't use it anymore. Just go get the vaccine. Please go get the vaccine. Speaking of the vaccine that totally works, from NBC News. Pfizer starts clinical trial for Ermagerd-specific COVID vaccine. From Berkeley Loveless Jr. Pfizer and BioNTech announced Tuesday they have started a clinical trial testing in a modified pinko pox jab to protect against the super contagious Ermagerd variant of the virus. The drug makers say they aim to enroll up to 1,420 healthy adults ages 18 to 25 in the trial, which will evaluate whether the Ermagerd-specific vaccine is safe and generates a strong immune response. As the cases start to fall, the participants will be divided into 3 groups: fully vaccinated and boosted, and unvaccinated. Well, there's not supposed to be any unvaccinated people anymore. Which will determine whether they receive 1, 2, or 3 doses of the modified vaccine. The companies also said they expect to launch a similar study in the U.S. testing the shot in those older than 55. The CDC released the new research Friday that found that the booster shot of the current pinko pox vaccine provides robust protection against severe illness from the rapidly spreading variant, which accounts for virtually all new cases in the U.S. Oh, that's so weird! That's so weird. You're going to get another booster. Aren't you excited? Another vaccine. Another PSA. And the U.S. government is going to buy more doses on taxpayer money. Aren't you all excited? Yeah, that's that police shooting thing. I didn't even get that up on the stack for the day. But apparently like 5 cops were shot in New York City. Speaking of masking, holy shit, we're out of time already. We'll do these last 2 though. Definitely we'll do these last 2. So we'll do the Daily Wire one, we'll do the U.S. News and World Report, and we'll do the Blaze, and then we'll get out of here for the day.
From the Daily Wire exclusive, Fairfax schools suspend kids, call police as system defies Virginia governor on masks. From Luke Rosiak. Fairfax County Public Schools made a show of defying Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin's order that schools respect parental rights on masking on Tuesday, with an assistant principal standing in front of the school to suspend students without masks and a public relations staffer who said the media was not allowed to watch the conflict between the state and local governments play out. Anytime a government official tells you that you're not allowed to watch this from the media, there are bigger problems in place. At one classroom exterior door, a teacher in a dark mask and a full-face plastic shield resembled Darth Vader as she peered through the glass, and after seeing a masked child out front open the door a crack to let him in. Providing muscle was a large security guard who inadvertently illustrated parents' concerns by removing his mask to lecture a parent because I can't speak with this thing. At another point, the security guard lashed out at the former school board member after his own mask caused his glasses to fog up to the point that he could not see who he was talking to. Parent Carrie Lucas walked her two children to the front door of Forestville Elementary, their smiling faces visible on school grounds for the first time in 2 years. She did not make it to the doorway before she was confronted by an assistant principal who said the children would not be allowed in the school. Security guard Christian Fuller followed as they retreated to their car. A Fairfax County media liaison demanded that the Daily Wire reporter leave as he wrote down the polite words exchanged between Lucas and the assistant principal, saying the journalist must go to what she deemed a media staging area in a residential neighborhood about 50 yards away. There were no other media present. Fuller then called the police, saying he would arrest a reporter for being in the school parking lot. Former school board member Tom Wilson, a Republican, intervened to express the First Amendment concerns, saying, "We'll see," to which Fuller replied, "Are you threatening me?" 2 undercover police cars and 1 marked patrol car soon arrived at the scene, where they were met by the media liaison and Fuller. By then, Lucas and her newly delinquent kids were at the neighborhood diner for chocolate pancakes and a lesson on civics. The invocation of harsh punishment seemed to fly in the face of years of claims by the school board and local Democratic politicians. The school board has frequently lamented that students should not be suspended for less than egregious offenses, calling it racist and saying it leads the school-to-prison pipeline. The pipeline idea posits that otherwise good kids will become so disenfranchised after being suspended that it could cause them to turn to a life of crime later in life. I got suspended once when I was in school, forging a signature on a disciplinary action. And look at me. I went down the school-to-prison pipeline. I started a pirate media company. And I stand here and talk to you every morning. School-to-prison pipeline right here. Dangerous extremism right here. And you guys are all empowering me. Board members Karen Keyes-Gamera and Rashna Sizemore Heiser, who have frequently lamented excess suspensions and the school-to-prison pipeline, did not return a request for comment on how the suspension of students for not wearing masks fits that view. Meanwhile, many minor crimes, including trespassing, are not persecuted by Fairfax Community's attorney Steve DeSano, whose views criminalizing people for such offenses are an affront to social justice. So, with that, now, as far as Fairfax goes, I don't like the fact that Glenn Youngkin can do a top-down order to order the schools, and this is coming from somebody who stands staunchly against mask mandates in schools. I don't think that they work. But this should be at the most local level possible, always. Your school board and your city alderman should be the people you should be discussing this with, not the governor of your state. In spite of the fact that I like what the governor of that state is doing, I still think this should always be the most local way possible. So, once again, as I always say, you can look back and you can look at your alderman or your school board member in the grocery store and say, "Bill, what the fuck are you thinking? What the fuck are you doing, Bill? Seriously?" Which these people should be talking to Bill in a hurry. These people should be confronting Bill in the grocery store right now because he's being an asshole about this. With that being said, We have students and parents that are set up to defy the school that is defying the governor's order on top of this. We're in a vicious cycle of defiance. And it's time to get some of these people out of their positions of power because they clearly suck at positions of power. All right, 2 more, and then we'll head out of here for the day. From U.S. News and World Report, Wisconsin Senate to vote on Constitutional Convention. From the Associated Press. Thank you, Ron Helton, for bringing this up on Porch Boys last night. Because I didn't know about this. And I live here. The Wisconsin Senate was poised to pass a resolution Tuesday calling for a convention of states to consider making changes to the U.S. Constitution, an effort backed by Republicans and opposed by Democrats. The full Wisconsin legislature in 2017 passed a resolution that allowed for calling a convention to consider a balanced budget amendment. The latest proposal, which the Assembly passed last year, is more expensive. It allows for the convention to consider 3 things: imposing fiscal restraints on the federal government, limiting the federal government's powers and jurisdiction, and imposing term limits for members of Congress and other federal officials. Democrats and other opponents argued that calling a constitutional convention could get out of control, leading to far-ranging revisions that could drastically reshape the nation's founding document. The current resolution has passed 15 states, mostly in the South. Congress must receive requests from 34 states to convene a convention of states. Because it's a resolution, it needed only pass the state Senate to serve as Wisconsin's application to Congress for a convention of the states. Congress can also refer amendments to the states by a 2/3 vote of each chamber. Both methods require at least 38 states to ratify an amendment before it can take effect. So, this brings us up to 16. We still need quite a few more, but there are enough state houses out here in the country, depending on their rules, that can come in and say, hey, it's time. It's time to do something else. Because what we're doing right now just ain't working. So good. Good on that sign on. And the last one. From the Blaze. Conservative lawmakers urge the Senate GOP to shut down the government to defund Biden's vaccine mandates. From Chris Pandolfo. What vaccine mandates does he even have left at this point? What, the Medicare, Medicaid one? That's it. That's all he's got. Ahead of February's upcoming government shutdown deadline, a group of House Republicans have declared their opposition to any bill to fund the government that also funds Biden admin's vaccine mandates. In a letter to GOP leadership, first reported by Fox News, more than a dozen House lawmakers have said they will not vote to fund a federal government that is enforcing tyrannical COVID-19 vaccine mandates on the American people. The Biden admin has enacted 5 federal vaccine mandates, 4 of which are currently in effect. President Biden's recent order that businesses with more than 100 employees have their workers vaccinated or regularly tested was struck down by the Supreme Court, which ruled the OSHA lacked the authority to impose such standards. Vaccine mandates for medical workers, the armed forces, federal employees, and federal contractors remain in effect. Who the fuck is using a 2-cycle outside my window? I can't see it, but I can hear it, and it is way too cold for a 2-cycle engine to be running. Holy shit. It was minus 15 when we started the show. I don't know how cold it is now, but it was minus 15 when I started. The Republicans, led by Chip Roy, said Congress should not place its faith in the judiciary to strike down the rest of Biden's vaccine mandates. Writing to House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, they advocated for a unified Republican opposition to funding the executive branch agencies that enforce the mandates. Congressional Republicans cannot continue to abdicate their Article 1 duties in hopes the judicial branch will rule in the favor of the American people, the letter said. Therefore, we, the undersigned, refuse to consider supporting any financial government funding vehicle, be it a continuing resolution or omnibus appropriations measure. How about a budget? That would be fucking nice. That funds the enforcement of COVID-19 vaccine mandates at any level of government. Now, I want to step back from this for just a second. I know we're out of time. We're up on the clock right now, and we've got to get out of here. We've got to do something that I'm thankful for and then head out of here for the day. But I want to step back on this and talk about this for just a second and say fucking good at this point. I mean, the biggest sin that they've done for the last few government shutdowns is open the government back up. Now, will this fail? Most likely, because all this has to do is pass by a slim majority in the House. And then we'll see what happens with the Senate, because that's going to be the big question here is what happens with the Senate, because they've already blown their fucking wad on budget reconciliation, and they need to have the other one set up there waiting, just in case they can convince Manchin to get on board with the Build Back fucking bullshit bill. But let's look at this realistically. No matter what happens, no matter if this is the president's fault, no matter if the president refuses to get on board with the budget, or an omnibus package, as we saw with this, the blame for whatever happens for the next government shutdown will go onto the highest ranking Republican. Always, every fucking time. The media is going to spin that, no matter who is at fault, even when Barack Obama was at fault. The blame went to John Boehner, or Paul Ryan in the short instance when Paul Ryan was the one that was at the helm when it happened. It went to those two. It went to Mitch McConnell. When it was under Trump, when the Democrats in the House refused to sign on to Trump's omnibus, it was Trump's fault. It was McConnell's fault. It was this fault. It was that fault. It's how the media is always going to twist this here. So, you know what? You might as well own it. Shutting the government down isn't going to do a goddamn thing except for the fact that Joe Biden's going to send people out there to go put locks around the gates on national parks and stop cleanup of the bathrooms in national parks. Go piss on a fucking tree in the national park. If you're going to go to the national park. They can't keep you out of it. They don't have enough armed forces to keep you out of the national park. So go piss on a tree. Take a shit in the woods like a bear. And for those of you who are either government contractors or regular government employees, get the fuck out of that job. Yes, I understand. It's an awesome paying job. It's an amazing paying job. And you get great benefits for that. But to what extent here? Because we're going to do this again next month. As primary time comes on here, we're going to do this next month. Again. Why do you want to be sitting in that position where the government can end your paycheck because they can't sit back and they can't get along with one another? But yes, at this point, it's time for them to come back out and own this. It's just like the racist label, which they're going to turn around and hang on everybody who doesn't agree with them anyway. Oh, well, they're just racist. Okay, fine. Call me a fucking racist. I don't give a fuck. I'm not a racist. I know I'm not a racist. But you're going to call me a racist no matter what I do because I advocate for separating yourself from the government. You're going to call me a white supremacist because I don't bend the knee to the progressive agenda. No matter what I do. No matter what I say. Because I dare to raise a microphone and speak truth other than what CNN is telling you to believe. Of course you're already going to call me a racist. So call me a racist already. Get it the fuck over with. Get it out of your system, assholes. And with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. But before we do that, we're going to finish out Wednesday with something that I am thankful for, which, I mean, there's always a lot to be thankful for. No matter what, you got the roof over your head, you've got sky outside. It's colder than shit outside right now, which I love. I love it when it's cold. It's colder than fuck out there right now, but there is a lot to be thankful for, and I mean, you should always take some time and find something to be specific. That's why we do this once a week over on this program here. And I didn't prepare for this at all either, as I usually don't. But I'm looking at things that are going on around, especially in the state, but around the country in general. And yes, I mean, it is time. And something that restores my faith in humanity is the fact that many of these Republicans now are looking at this and saying, fine, fuck you, call me a racist. Hey, fuck you. Tell the world that I shut the government down. There's no reason for it to be open again. And every time they do this, more and more people look at this and the start. You remember the anti-smoking commercials in the 90s? when they'd have a guy with, he's doing a presentation. Well, smoking is this, smoking is that, smoking is bad for you. And then they'd freeze the frame, and you'd start to see the little asterisks show up on the heads of all the people that are watching the presentation this guy's giving. And meanwhile, the presentation didn't do jack fucking shit. For the most part, most of us realized that when we were waking up at 22 and coughing our fucking lungs out every morning, that's when we decided it might be time to quit smoking. That's when I decided it might be time to start considering this. I didn't quit until just a few years ago, officially, but you know, in the early 20s, when you realize you've got that heavy cough already and it's lingering. But that's one of the things that I am thankful for. One of the things that restores my faith in humanity as we continue to do this. Every time they do a government shutdown like this, people realize how little of an effect the federal government actually has in their lives. Every time we have a government shutdown like this, another government employee looks at this and says, hey Peggy, should I get a job in the private sector? Is this government really worth it because we go through this every 6 months? Every time somebody says, let's go Brandon, somebody considers the fact that the Biden admin hasn't done jack shit. And that's what restores my faith in humanity. That's what makes me thankful right now. Is the fact that every time the government fucks up, that asterisk, the frame freezes, and that asterisk shows up on the head of another person. Now, in situations like this, and we see a lot of the boomer con, the neocon people out there who look at this and say, well, this just means I should go to the Republican Party, which it doesn't. In any stretch of the imagination, that does not mean any of that for any second right now. Because the Republicans aren't going to save you either. And that's the message that we need to get across. The Democrats have a hold of all the institutions, all the big businesses, all the educational systems, excuse me, and all the government right now. So it's easy to convince you that they're the ones that are bad, but the neocon Republicans are going to do the same thing, and they're going to yell Jesus, Jesus while they're doing it. And it's time to free yourself from all of these people. It's time to free yourself from government influence. And every time they fuck up, more and more people take that step, either going into the boomer con side of things, which, I mean, it's a good stepping stone. I took that stepping stone. Or they come out and realize that the government doesn't have their best interests in heart. And that is what I'm thankful for. And that's what restores my faith in humanity. And with that, let's head out of here for the day. Where's the outro? Thank you to Game Chops for the music for the day as well, by the way. That was awesome, as always, in the background. And I'm actually pretty happy about the fact that so many of these playlists now have copyright-free music. But with that, we are going to head out of here for the day. If you're over on Twitch, stick around. Let's go find somebody to raid here. T-Sewell Javakoliv cheered 100 bits, the first bits that I've ever got over here. Thank you for that. That was an hour ago. I didn't get an alert because I don't know how to set up alerts on this side yet here. So, but yeah, I've got my first actual payment here from Twitch here. Well, I've got the subscriptions and now the bits too. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let's get a refresh onto this and let's get somebody rated. Even though Ignoramus isn't going yet, we'll go with Nephora. We like Nephora over here. So we'll set that up here, and we'll head out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, and everybody who stuck around over on the Twitch side. We'll be back here tomorrow to talk about a thing that I like and a thing that I hate, and all the news headlines that continue to crop up over the day, throughout the day, for the next 24 hours here. So come back and join us for more news, more headlines on a Thursday morning with Contemporary, and we will see you then. And join us to go with Nephora right now. We'll be rating over there, so if you're still over on the Twitch side, come and join us for that, and we will see you next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Ecker, and this is Contemporary. Take care.